Outlast was one of the best horror games ever to have graced our screens. But when I heard the term Outlast DLC, I have to admit, it fired up cynical whibs and gave them all the reasons in the world to be skeptical about what they could do to one of my favourite horror titles. Let's run through the basics of Whistleblower. You play Wayland Park, the guy who told the protagonist of the original story about all the nasty nonsense that Murkoff were up to up at the asylum. Of course, while you're there, it all goes to balls and you find yourself having to escape. So far, so similar to almost every other horror game ever. The general gist of the game is roughly the same. Run, hide, no fighting bad guys, use your camera to look through darkened spots, try not to get yourself killed so some lunatic can crank one out over your corpse. Same old, same old. Graphically speaking, it's still very beautiful. Much of the same from the original Outlast remains, and the same can be said for the music. It's still very creepy, if not a little bit intrusive this time around. Now don't get me wrong here, it's a great mood setter, but when an orchestra is going absolutely off its nut while you're trying to hide from a guy with a reticulating bone saw, it's a little bit much. Yes, I'm perfectly aware that I could turn down the volume, but the real question is, should I have to? Music that builds mood should be subtle, appropriate, and well defined within the parameters of what's happening, and it should never ever make you want to turn it down. Whistleblower gives us two new antagonists who I shall refer to as Ainsley and the Homemaker. While it might seem a little too much to have two new antagonists as well as the old ones, Fatty, Screamy Punchy, as well as Tony and Abbott, it really does make you understand the level of insanity that has actually been going on at the asylum. The whole game is based around atmosphere, the underlying horror of what's happening, not just with the antagonists but with the Mount Massive facility itself. The dark corridors and trash rooms all add to what I'd like to call the "I'm so frickin' dead" factor. There's a terrible sense of foreboding as you enter every room, wondering what horrendous scene will unfold in front of you next. And let me assure you, there are plenty of those. I said it at the start of the video and I'll repeat it again. There is some really messed up shit going on in this game. It's really not for the faint of heart, and it's certainly not for minors. Mutilation, necrophilia, cannibalism, so just be aware of that. There are plenty of new areas to explore, but Whistleblower did suffer from the same instances of where the hell do I go next that the original did as well. Here's a pro tip. Look up. That's really the only design complaints that I have. There's an annoying section with the Homemaker, and sometimes it can feel a bit bewildering when it comes to direction, particularly when you're wounded and have a 1950s psychopath chasing you. And sometimes the amount of running that you have to do can stop you from taking in the super creepy environment. This DLC is an amazing bargain. Its length, quality, and what it adds to the story make it so very much worth the $8. You should probably buy this out of 10.